Hello and welcome back to Fallout London, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Crude Gun. This is one of the first guns that you get access to in Fallout London, and it is our replacement for the pipe pistol from Fallout 4 and Fallout 76. And unlike the pipe weapons and that, this one actually looks like it could function and it looks way better. Even though it's still a pile of scrap that's been put together to make a gun, at least it looks like it could potentially function as a gun. So I can definitely appreciate that, because I have a whole video talking about why I hate the pipe guns in Fallout 4, with the exception of like the syringer. I do kind of like that one, but the other ones just aren't really for me. The revolver's okay too, but the rest are garbage. This one looks a whole lot better, and it becomes pretty much the standard weapon that you see raiders carrying around. And luckily, it's pretty much just restricted to raiders and settlers, which makes sense. A lot of other enemies don't carry around this, especially any of like the militaries or the more organized groups tend not to carry around the Crude Guns. So for the stats of the Crude Gun, this one does 37 damage per shot. This is for a semi-automatic one that we're going to be talking about, although finding a fully automatic one is just as likely for the start. And the only real difference here is that semi-automatic is going to do more damage per shot. The fully automatic is going to have a much higher rate of fire, though. In Fallout London, you don't get a whole lot of ammo, but if you're going with like a commando build and you've also got Scrounger, you could still definitely make this work, because this does take some of the most common ammo in the game. So don't be afraid of going with a full auto version. I used it even when I wasn't going with commando on my build. I was just going with like a rifleman build, but it just got to the point where I had so many bullets that I was just putting them in these just to fire them out quicker. The DPS from this is pretty high. It can be very high if it's in full auto, because the rate of fire does actually about triple. Something that's really cool about Fallout London compared to like Fallout 4 is that the rate of fire does make a significant difference. It's not just slightly faster rate of fire for much less damage. Like how it is in both Fallout 4 and in Starfield. When turning something from semi-auto to full auto is basically not even a net gain, it's usually a loss. In London, it actually does make a difference. This shoots the 32 caliber round, which is the most common round in Fallout London, which is cool. I do actually like that the pipe weapons are firing this. It's a whole lot better than the 38 round, even though technically the 38 round in Fallout 4 was probably supposed to be a 380 round, in which case it would make sense that it would fit into a pipe gun. 32 also makes sense that it could work in a pipe weapon. I could see that not actually blowing it up. However, this does have the same thing that the pipe gun does, where you can significantly change it to where it's no longer shooting 32, instead of shooting 303, which is probably the most common rifle round in Fallout London. I don't think it's a great use to be turning this into a 303, but you can do it if you just have an excess of ammo. This one has 33 rate of fire. That is for the semi-automatic version. The fully automatic version, I believe, has 90 rate of fire, although that can be increased even further with certain other receivers. This one has 203 range, actually pretty long range, and 44 accuracy. Not the best in terms of accuracy, which isn't such a big deal because you get a bunch of bullets for this and you can reload it fairly quick, so it's kind of whatever. These also weigh 9. They are very heavy guns, so you don't really want to be carrying a whole lot of them around, but you will likely want to pick them up just so that you can get more bullets from them. For the general pros of the Crude Guns, these are early game weapons and super easy to find all throughout the world, which also makes them very likely to get some sort of legendary effect, just like the pipe weapons in Fallout 4. That can be really, really strong, because if you get one of these early on that has like explosive or bleed, you basically just win the game right there, just like you do with the pipe weapons. It's kind of nice if you do get a legendary one of these. They also have a super common ammo. The 32 rounds, basically everybody carries them, and you can find them just all over the place. You can also buy them from just about any vendor. Ammo is kind of expensive in London, but it's not that expensive, at least for the 32 rounds, which is pretty good. Major con to this weapon is that it does fall off. There are better 32 guns than this, although you could argue that you don't really need them because this is a full auto weapon, and with like the drum mag, it makes really good use of the ammo. Changing it to 303 I think is not worth it, even though that gets the most amount of damage. There's just so many other weapons that also use 303. We just talked about the Enfield. The FAL also uses 303, or can use 303. You could also use like the Bren gun, which takes 303 rounds, and I think the Bren gun is not only cooler than this, but also a lot more practical for a machine gun build if you want to be using it in that role. I would just kind of keep it in the 32. For an overall rating for the Crude Gun, by itself in the semi-auto form, I would probably have to say this one is like a D tier for our rating. It's on the high end of D tier, but you're probably going to swap it off for other weapons. Again, if you just have an excess of 32 rounds and you want to go with the full auto version, that's a different story, and we'll be rating that separate. But just the standard Crude Gun, nothing way crazy to talk about, but still decent in the early game. So for an actual build, and I would recommend you go with a full auto version of this, because again, you get so much 32 rounds unless you have that saved for a different gun. So for this, you pretty much have like the semi-auto receiver, the full auto receiver, which is the standard one, and then you've got the rapid one, which reduces your damage even further, but makes you have an even higher rate of fire. It's not by that much though, you go from like 90 to like 115 or so. I think the standard one's better for the amount of damage that you get. For the barrels, you can either go with the long barrel or the short barrel. I usually go with the long barrel because that's the standard one, but if you want to go with the short one, go for it. You could make this into like a little submachine gun too. That would be fine too. It would make it so it wouldn't weigh as much. If you're going to go with the submachine gun, I guess you should go with the pistol stock, but usually I'd recommend the recoil compensating stock. That one's just the best one for keeping the recoil down. Then go with the drum magazine for a magazine here. That one makes the most sense for a full auto weapon like this, unless you feel like it's not necessary and you could go with the extended quick eject mag. That could also work. For the sights, I really like the reflex sight. I think that one's probably the best for this, at least in my own opinion, but you can pick whatever sights you'd like. They're all really good. Just choose which one you want. And then for a muzzle attachment, the suppressor is probably the best one because it stacks with Mr. Sandman, so you can get more damage from that. Although if you aren't taking Mr. Sandman or you don't really care about that, the compensator or the muzzle brake would work just fine too. This one is a whole lot better, and I think it's actually pretty practical for clearing buildings. So I'd put this one as like a B tier rating. I think it's actually pretty decent for most of the jobs in Fallout London. You could argue something like the pump action shotgun works a little bit better for the same sort of job, at least at close range. And of course, if you're not going to the commando build, this one is going to be a bit weaker overall. But it's still a very fun gun. I really like it. Tell me your thoughts on this crude gun. We also have a crude revolver to go over, but I didn't want to include it in this because it is a substantially different weapon, as well as there's a bunch of other kind of crude weapons in Fallout London, as well as some really authentic weapons in Fallout London. Tell me what other weapons you would like to see next in this, because we've got a lot of them to talk about. Thank you guys so very much for watching it. I hope that you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody!